Well, we're in Nicky's coffee shop here at SuperValue in Killybegs, and with us is the Donegal senior team manager, Rory Gallagher, just to prove that you do other things besides manage a football team. Rory, nice setup here in Nicky's. I know this is run by your wife here, and the shop very busy. We've seen it very busy this morning here.
Yeah, the good weather brings people out, and I suppose we're heading into summer season now, and thankfully Killybegs is doing well. You know, the Wild Atlantic Way, everything has kicked things off, and there's a lot of tourist trade at the minute.
Yeah. Well, in a week like this, would you spend much time about the store here, or is it the case that you're hightailing it out of Killybegs as quick as you can to training and all sorts of other stuff?
Well, you'll be heading to training, but you're here, but sometimes your mind's not here, you know. All we're focusing on is Derry this Saturday night, and look, we're really looking forward to that.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking to Declan Bonner earlier on today and putting the point to them that having beaten Tyrone and Armagh, and in the case of the seniors, having beaten Armagh so impressively and comprehensively, there's a kind of, I feel a kind of complacency among supporters in relation to the Derry game. I'm sure that doesn't exist with you and the players.
No, not at all. Look, we as a group, you know, and as a panel and management team, we like to think we live in the real world, you know. So it is, and every day, you know, in our sport, you have to prove yourself, you know. You're only as good as your next game. That's been said a lot of times, and we're very much aware of that, you know. And Derry have been operating in Division 1 the last 2 years, so they have, and this year they've been extremely focused on the championship, you know, and we know they're going to be in a very dangerous animal.
Yeah, and how do you prepare after the Armagh game, because there was such a build up to that for whatever reason? Maybe there's a number of reasons for that, Rory, and there's been a very quick turnover now. I mean, 13 days since that game to the Derry game. Is there a difference of approach in terms of the way you approach it?
Yeah, there definitely was. You know, we had a 4-week lead in into the Armagh to get our heads around it. You know, obviously we don't look at Derry until Armagh's out of the way, so from a coaching perspective it's been a tight turnaround, but at the same time I think the lads prefer it, you know. It's game on game, but the first week, you know, the game in the athletic grounds took a lot out of us physically, you know, with the heat and that as well, so the next 4 or 5 days are all about recovery. Did a light wee bit of work at the weekend, and now it's very much, you know, honing in mentally for the weekend as well. The big thing, you know, when you have a short turnaround is staying fresh.
Yeah, and injury wise as well, a couple of concerns obviously in that game with Eamon McGee and with Patrick McBurdy coming off, and of course Colm Anthony didn't make the starting lineup. What's the situation with those guys?
Well, it's all good news, really positive. Colm was back in, done a light bit of training on the Tuesday night after the game, and he's fully up to speed then by Thursday night. Patrick joined in again on the Thursday night. Patrick's was very, very minor, and Eamon McGee was in at the weekend, so thankfully we have everybody available that was available the last day.
Yeah. What sort of approach do you expect Derry to take on Sunday, Rory? You're somebody who thinks a lot about the opposition as well. They've been criticised with the defensive setup they introduced during the National League, and it was evident again in their first championship match against Down. Will it be similar in Clonus? Yeah,
that's what we'd expect. You know, I think they went with a very clear plan, particularly against Dublin in the National League. You know, it was 13-14 men behind the ball. They didn't contest the kick out, so they didn't. And again against Down, they were very, very structured in their defensive system. But Derry are entitled to set up what way they feels best, suits their players. You know, and you know, even the last year in Celtic Park, I think they were fairly defensive as well. But I don't think criticism will bother them. Brian McIver, you know, will have instilled the belief that this is the way they're going to play, and it's a very definitive way they're going to play.
Yeah, and for you, Rory, I mean, a lot of plaudits in terms of the way you set up against Tyrone with Colm Anthony out the pitch and Michael out the pitch that day as well, and again against Armagh, leaving Patrick isolated, proved to be, you know, a real gem of a decision to make, and the way the team played. Can you come up with new ideas for the Derry game, bearing in mind that you think they're going to set up very defensively?
Look, we work a lot on playing against defensive systems. You know, a lot of our training all year is geared towards that, not with a specific opponent in mind, but knowing that this is the way a lot of teams, particularly in Ulster, are going to play. So we're very comfortable, you know, coming up against this at this stage. You know, I think, you know, probably the Monaghan game in the National League was a very defining game where we struggled against it. We feel our attitude to playing against them sort of teams has improved since that. But every day again takes on a life of its own. You know, whether it's Patrick inside, Patrick's very comfortable out the field, but we're just lucky that we have players that are very flexible and fluid in where they can play.
Yeah, very interesting that you mentioned that, and it's a game that has been mentioned on several occasions by the very nature of it, you know. But since that, Rory, nobody's been able to contain Donegal the way Monaghan did that day. They took you by surprise, I think, that day in the Donald Park, and maybe took the players by surprise. But since that, Donegal have been able to mix their defensive game with a very offensive game as well.
Yeah, that's been the challenge, you know, and that was the perception out there that we struggled against teams that set up similar to ourselves. But we've had to embrace that now and take it on the chin and try to learn the lessons, you know, and we feel we've improved at it, but there's still huge areas of improvement, you know. At the same time, people get a wee bit carried away. We only scored 211, we only scored 113, you know, nobody's getting carried away. Tipperary or Kerry scored 214. So they did at the weekend. Cork 120.
Yeah.
Donegal, probably people get a wee bit excited, you know. So they do.
Well, the opposition they were playing now mightn't have been just as strong as Armagh.
Maybe not as strong, but we would feel there's more in us. So there is, you know, and we work equally. We always have done. We work equally on defence and attack. They're both go hand in hand, so they do, and it's very much each day takes on then, you know, a different sort of chapter as such, you know, depending on what the opposition do.
Yeah, and in terms of the complacency thing, just going back to the weekend, Sligo beating Roscommon wasn't expected, Antrim beating Laois wasn't expected, so I suppose when you see things like that, it certainly puts people on guard, if their guard has dropped anything at all, that these things can happen in football.
Oh, for sure. Listen, any day, you know, you have to be at it, but complacency is not something, to be honest, I would worry about with our squad of players. I think they've proved over the years, you know, they consistently respect each opponent and they consistently deliver a very good standard of performance, so they do. And you know, it's not something that to the outside people looking in, they perceive us as heavy favourites. We don't look at that, you know.
We've spoken to Eamon McGee and to Hugh McFadden, two guys at opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of their inter-county careers. It's very interesting hearing what they have to say. I mean, very focused on the whole approach to it, very much a team situation, Rory, very much a squad situation. I mean, that's the sort of positivity that you want to hear from players, because picking the first 15 isn't easy, but if you know the other guys are going to support whatever decisions you make, that's a big plus.
Yeah, for sure, you know, and that's a big thing, you know, at the start of the year, try to create an environment that's competitive, and everybody's got to understand that there's only 15, 18, 19 can play in any given day, and that requires a fair bit of understanding and a very unselfish attitude to the whole thing, and we're lucky to have that, you know, with a lot of players, you know. And you mentioned Hugh and Eamon, they're at the opposite ends, but you see their enthusiasm. They're like two kids every day. They go out playing, and you know, and that's, you know, the big thing about all the boys. They love playing football, so they do, and you know, they have to set aside their own personal interest, as in everybody wants to be on the starting 15. That's not possible, and we're fortunate that culture has harvested itself the last number of years.
Yeah. Back in Clonus for the first time since the Ulster final last year, a ground and a stadium that has been good to Donegal in recent times, and one I think most of the players enjoy playing in.
Yeah, it's a place we're very comfortable in, you know, and it's a place at the start of the year where you want to be, you know, in the Ulster Championship, you know, we had two big hurdles to get there, so we had, and now we're there, we have to produce it again, but we're very comfortable there. We know the routine, you know, and yeah, the game's at 7 o'clock, it's a slight change, but it's something that we'll very much, you know, take in our hands, you know.
Is the manager nervous, because it's your first time with an opportunity to manage a team into an Ulster final, so is it a different Rory Gallagher this week maybe compared to previously?
No, not really, you know, the hunger that and the passion that I had and the will to win 3 years ago is the exact same as now, and you know, the titles change to one extent, and yes, the buck stops with you with regards to decisions and one thing and another, but you know, having been with the group for 3 years, you feel just very much part of it as well now, you know, and even though you're seen as the head of it, you know, we all feel we're one, you know, and we all have nerves, and you're definitely the nerves that start to ratchet up towards the end of the week on Saturday morning, but that's part of it.
Yeah, it's remarkable really, the performance of Donegal in the Ulster Championship in the last 5 years. I think this will be their 17th match coming up at the weekend. They've only lost once, and that was in an Ulster final. I mean, to perform like that in a province which is recognised as the toughest by far, it says a lot about the players that you're handling.
Yeah, it's very satisfying, so it is, you know, and it shows a very consistent level of you know, competition and the way we went about our business, you know, the 17 occasions we played obviously are big days, but there's an awful lot of nights and days go into preparing for that, and that's the one thing we've been very good at, you know, keeping our feet on the ground, working hard night after night and doing everything we can then to produce the performance, and we you know, the one that we lost stays very fresh in our memory too. For
sure. So finally, Rory, confident if you get the performance, and I suppose on any given day that's what it's all about, but if you get the performance that we know Donegal are capable of, we'll be in another Ulster final.
Yeah, listen, I'm always confident with this group of players, you know, providing we go out and we produce the right attitude and our intensity levels at the right level, with full belief in our quality of players, but Derry will be saying the exact same thing, so it's about who can bring it on the best at the weekend.
We look forward to it, Rory. Thanks for talking to us and posting us here on Super Value and in Nicky's this morning. Appreciate it.
Thanks.